Yeah, sometimes I find myself almost like getting myself to react emotionally to this thing that I didn't care that much about originally, like I feel this like negative event coming on and I like am not upset about it. I'm pretty like neutral, but then like just like out of some force in me, I feel like I should feel negatively about this and I start working myself into it and thinking like, yeah, actually you're right, this does suck. And I just like let that negative emotion come on to me. It's almost like I've been like conditioned in a way. Like I see these videos of newborn babies where like one video is like the guy has his baby and he walks up to a wall and hits his hand against the wall and pretends the baby hit his head and he's like, oh no, oh my gosh, no, and the baby starts crying even though the baby didn't even get its head hit. It just like was confused and just went along with it and it's all crying and sad. And then this other video to contrast that where it's like a baby falls out of its crib and it's like waiting, like looking at the mom for the reaction. Like if the mom reaction is all like, oh my gosh, no, the
Dude,
baby
that
would probably
happened to
start
me.
crying.
That happened to me today at the pool, just like 20 minutes ago. There was this little baby, like barely 1 years old, 2 years old. He's like getting out of the pool and he slips and like bangs his head on the floor and he's like staring at me. And I'm just like, I kind of like opened my mouth and like shock a little bit, but I just like smiled at him. And then he kind of like smiled at me and just like brushed it off and just like
Yeah,
walked away.
it's
But
almost
he was like looking at me, like waiting for my reaction. He's like, "What do you think? Like, was that bad? Like, am I hurt?"
yeah, it's almost like they're waiting for like confirmation. Like, yeah, in that video, the mom's all like laughing. She's like, "Oh, did you hurt your head?" And the baby has like some little smile and giggles a little bit. And it's like, wow, like, I mean, I'm sure negative emotions do exist in actuality. Like, of course they do, but I think some amount of it is like conditioning that we like are just not letting ourselves experience as much peace because we're purposely giving in to these emotions.
Yeah, I think we are conditioned, definitely. Like, we think that there's some like moral standard that we have to follow. Like, if we do something that's objectively wrong, we have to shame ourselves to hold ourselves accountable. We have to punish ourselves. But like, arguably, if there is such thing as karma, let's say, or balance or justice in the universe, then the justice will carry out despite how we feel about it. In fact, the most beneficial thing to do if we were to mess up, like let's say crash into somebody and they break their arm because of a mistake we made, arguably, if justice is going to carry out despite how we feel about it, then we should choose to forgive ourselves and move on. As long as you learn the lesson that needs to be learned from the situation, like we don't need to whip ourselves for a lifetime about a mistake we made 80 years ago.
And I feel like some people will like feel shame towards themselves and beat themselves up instead of just actually trying to make things right with the person that they hurt. You know what I mean? Like instead of just using this as an excuse to beat yourself up, you could use this as an excuse to do kindness and to make it beyond right. You
For
know what I
real,
mean?
yeah,
Like,
like the victim mentality, like I hit you and broke your arm and I feel so bad about it and hate myself so much that I'm gonna suffer just as much as you are.
exactly. Like, I think realistically, what that person would want is not to see you hold it against yourself forever, but to see you like show them compassion and try to like make up for it or at least have enough empathy to be like, oh my gosh, like, is there anything I can do? Like, get to know them, maybe like check up on them once every couple of years, just show them some like true, genuine kindness. Like, I've met some people who they like treated me really badly and then later on they like come up to me and they're like, hey man, like I'm really sorry, like I treated you that way, like I really shouldn't have done that. I've been feeling so bad about it for so long. I like hate myself. I'm like, no, I don't want you to hate yourself. I want you to just like, yeah, to just like come around and just, yeah, just have a good time with me. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, you don't need justice is not beating yourself up about it. Like like a little bit of grace means like you could forgive yourself and just move on and love yourself and just learn the lesson and and then it's as if it never happened. Like at least like with that choice, we could just walk away from our mistakes and become a fresh, pure, brand new human being again. I feel like throughout a lifetime, we pick up every single mistake we make, we pick up a little bit of shame, a little bit of guilt, and the grace goes away. Like, we don't walk with grace, we walk with shame. And like, you see people like putting their head down, like their confidence just slowly goes away. And I saw a lot of confidence in elementary school, a lot of confidence in junior high, and by the time we got like to the later high school, like most kids were already like beaten down by the social pressures. Like, the judgment got to them, and they like didn't love themselves unconditionally anymore. They were guilty that they weren't popular, and shamed that they weren't like cool, and they didn't have nice clothes or a nice car. And like, it gets worse in your 20s and your 30s, and then it's like, by the time you're like in the adult world, surrounded by people that have lived for decades and decades, they don't have this natural like sense of confidence anymore. There's like arrogance and there's self-pity. It's like one of the two, and either one of those is just compensating for like an actual like unconditional love for yourself. And really all that's happened is time has passed, events have happened, and residual emotions from those events that have stayed inside of people have now turned their relationship with themselves from "it's okay, like I love you, you're perfect," to like, "no, like you're dirty and you're gross, and like you've just messed up way too much for me to like really see you the way I would see a small child." Like, we see the small child as like totally innocent and has done nothing wrong, so like we love them unconditionally. But then when that child turns into a teenager and they start doing things we don't like, every single time they do something we don't like, that our perception of them changes until like you don't even really like your own kid anymore. So,
Yeah.
like, we're just no good at like forgiving things. I think we think justice and accountability means that we have to like hold grudges and never forgive,
Real.
never forget.
I think really what everyone wants within themselves is just to like let go of the past and be like a new person today. And it's hard because like all these people have this perception of you they're carrying around in all these moments, and it's so hard to like stray away from that perception when you're with them. But if we were able to do that within ourselves, to let ourselves start fresh and allow that for everyone else around us, and they followed suit, then like everyone could just be a new person every day they wake up, and a better person for it, you know?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I think unconditional love is, I don't know, it might not even be possible, but it's definitely something to shoot for. It definitely is healing. It's so healing to shoot for that, and like to do it consciously, meaning like take the time to forgive yourself, take the time to find the ways that you judge yourself and work on your relationship with yourself. You really can like find a fresh start within yourself. Like, this last winter was just so cold in my house because I wasn't paying for heating because I didn't want to. And so I would just like lay in bed a lot. Like, I'd go home from work and I would just listen to an audiobook and lay in bed, and I would just think about all the ways that I judge myself, shame myself, guilt myself. And because the audiobook I was listening to told me that I was worthy of forgiveness, I started to believe it, and I started to work on it and give that to myself. And then it started to change my relationship with myself, and I started to get more confidence back, and I started to feel lighter, and I started to feel younger, and I started to feel like the emotional burden I was carrying around from my past was just slowly going away. And you can just chip away at it until it's completely gone. Like, I truly believe in psychological healing. Like, it totally is real. Like, you don't have to die slowly every single day, like just hold on to things forever. Like, you can release as you go. It makes a hell of a difference.
Yeah, it's like that's what like all of, psychology was originally based upon. I think like therapy and things like that have sort of a stigma, but it was like You know, originally they're like interpreting dreams and they're trying to see like where do you have like shame or guilt or feelings that you're not comfortable with, you've been holding on to your entire life. And then that process of like talking about them and digging them up and letting them come to the forefront, like was able to be a part of this healing process. You know, they say that like sometimes certain people, I don't know if this is true for everyone, but all of these unconscious like problems that they have with themselves or with their life or these negative emotions spill over into their dreams, and they're just like tormented by like dreams about all their worst failures and how they feel about themselves and being like embarrassed, and that common example of like walking around in public without underwear or something, and you're like freaking out because you're like, no, I need to find my underwear, like I'm so ashamed, you know.